In the heart of ABA, where dreams grow like weeds and die like flies, a boy was born under the shadow of wealth, yet raised in the embrace of struggle. His name? Peter. But the streets would come to know him as Peter Billions. The boy who whispered with demons and counted money soaked in blood. Peter was born on a rainy Thursday in 1996, in a weathered zinc roof house that shivered under the weight of every storm. His mother, Ngozi, was a food vendor who sold okpa and puff-puff by the roadside, her back hunched from years of struggle. His father had disappeared one market morning in Onitsha. Some said he fled with a mistress to Cameroon. Others whispered darker things, that he was used for rituals. Whatever the truth, Peter never asked. Because hunger had already taught him that questions were luxury. He was the first of 3 children, all boys. He wore hand-me-downs that smelled of camphor and had never tasted pizza until he was 17. But what he lacked in money, he had in beauty. People said Peter had the face of a Nollywood prince, honey dark skin, dimpled smile, and eyes that looked like they hid secrets. But the only secret he carried then was this: he wanted to be rich. Filthy rich. At any cost. At 15, Peter began to mix with older boys in the neighborhood. Most of them carried iPhones they didn't buy themselves, wore designers that never came from ABA market, and always had women flocking around them like flies on suya. One of them was Zobi Cash, a known Nigeria boy. He drove a black GLK at just 19 and had tattoos of snakes on both arms. Zobi took a liking to Peter, maybe because Peter was handsome, or maybe because the spirits that followed Zobi smelled something similar in the boy. Zobi gave Peter a taste of wealth. He bought him a pair of fake Balenciagas, taught him how to use VPNs to scam Oyabo women, and fed him fried rice and turkey every night. Peter was hooked. His innocence was gone in a matter of weeks, swallowed by the glitter of fast money. But Zobi had one rule: to be a real boss, you must feed the gods. At first, Peter laughed. He thought it was just street talk. But one night, Zobi took him to a dark room at the edge of town. The room had red cloth hanging from the ceiling, cowrie shells on the floor, and a clay pot that steamed with black smoke. There, Peter saw something that would haunt his dreams for years. A girl, unconscious, with a goat tied beside her. He ran that night, vomiting in the gutter. But something had entered him. A hunger. A restlessness. Something that couldn't be fed by jollof rice or bank alerts. Peter left ABA at 18 and moved to Lagos. The city swallowed him whole. But unlike others, he didn't drown. He adapted. He slept under bridges, stole Wi-Fi from betting shops, and DM'd white women on Facebook using fake photos. He sharpened his English until it dripped with American swag. He created PayPal accounts like a machine. And slowly, money began to flow. At 20, he got his first Benz. A white C300. He moved into a 2-bedroom apartment in Lekki Phase 1. His IG page blew up. The caption on every photo. Hashtag no love in the city. Hashtag from gutter to glory. Hashtag Peter Billions lifestyle. But the real turning point came at 22, when he reconnected with Zobi Cash, now rebranded as Zobi Oracle. Zobi had climbed the ladder. He no longer did petty fraud. He was a full-time ritualist, a custodian of an underground money cult known as the Table of Seven. And that's when he made Peter the offer. If you want billions, not just millions, you must feed the god of Billy. How? Peter asked, though he already knew. Zobi whispered, "Hookup girls. Each one is a gate. Sacrifice them, and Billy will open the vault. Peter hesitated, but not for long. The first girl was named Shewa, a final-year student from Unilag. Slim waist, big eyes, and a soft voice. Peter met her on Instagram. He invited her over for a Netflix night. She never made it home. Her scream echoed inside his Lekki mansion that night. But no neighbor called the police. No one cared. Because in that part of town, everyone minds their business, especially when the rich are involved. Peter cried afterward. Not out of guilt, but out of fear that the money wouldn't come. But by morning, his account balance had tripled. He received $100,000 in Bitcoin from an unknown wallet. He bought a Maybach the next day. Peter Billions was born. From 23 to 25, Peter became a Lagos legend. He threw parties where girls danced naked in swimming pools filled with champagne. He sprayed dollars at weddings like it was toilet paper. He hired bouncers bigger than wrestlers, who wore black suits and never smiled. He built a 5-bedroom mansion in Banana Island. The walls were painted black and gold. A snake mirror curled up the staircase. The house had no mirrors, only screens showing live CCTV of every room. But the sacrifices never stopped. He had a private driver whose only job was to pick up new girls every Friday. Each Friday night, a girl went missing in Lagos. They called him the Friday Ghost on Twitter. But no one suspected Peter. To the public, he was a generous young billionaire with tech investments. To the spirits, he was a blood dealer. And to himself, Peter was empty. He drank heavily. He took sleeping pills. He avoided daylight. Because deep down, he knew. He was not living. He was being kept alive by something ancient, something watching. The sun had barely broken through the Lagos morning haze when rumors began to stir. In Banana Island, where silence was wealth and noise was poverty's cousin, whispers floated from compound to compound, not about politics or power, but about Peter Billions. Not his money. Not his women. Not even his garage that housed a fleet of Range Rovers, Lamborghinis, and Bentleys. But something darker. Last night, they heard screams. From inside the mansion. Screams. Like a woman crying. No. A man, and it didn't sound human. The people never dared walk past Peter's house. It was beautiful from the outside, tall gates laced with gold trimming, a marble lion's head at the entrance, and glowing blue lights that stayed on all night. But the house had a heartbeat of its own. Security guards rotated shifts every week. None stayed longer than that. Some quit without warning. Others mumbled incoherently about eyes watching them in the mirror. Behind the curtains of his glass-walled mansion, Peter Billions was not just a Yahoo boy anymore. He had become something else. Something cursed. Peter sat shirtless in his bedroom, beads of sweat rolling down his chest. His hands trembled as he counted a bundle of crisp dollars. Across the room, a girl lay tied to the bed, gagged, her eyes wide with fear. She was his sixth. He didn't know her name. He didn't care. Her Instagram said she was a model from Abuja. Flown in, lodged in a 5-star hotel, seduced with champagne, and promised a night with a billionaire. She thought she'd made it. Instead, she was the next offering. Peter walked slowly toward her, clutching a small calabash filled with black powder and dried lizard skin. "Forgive me," he whispered, though his face showed no regret. "You are the price." The girl struggled. The ropes dug deeper into her skin. She tried to scream, but the gag turned it into a muffled moan. Peter drew the sigil on her forehead using the powder. He chanted the words Baba Olekan taught him, the ones that called the money deity into the room. The lights flickered. A gust of wind blew open the windows. And then, silence. Total silence. Until the mirror cracked. And the deity appeared, not with horns or fangs, but as a reflection in the broken glass. He looked like Peter. Only, not quite. His eyes were black. His skin was rotting gold. His smile stretched too far. You offer her willingly, the reflection asked, voice like glass scraping steel. Peter nodded. Yes. The deity smiled wider. Then take what you crave. The girl gasped, once. And never moved again. That morning, 12 alerts buzzed on Peter's phone. $40,000 landed from a fake crypto scheme in South Africa. $82,000 from a pension scam targeting retirees in Florida. €100,000 from a hacked government contractor in the Netherlands. Plus a mysterious wire transfer of 70 million Nigerian nairas from an unknown source. The money had no brakes. Peter, now 26, became a god among boys. He bought 3 more houses, one in Lekki, one in Ghana, and one in Dubai. He launched a fake NGO and posed as a humanitarian on social media. He hired actors to play orphans and widows for his videos. He was now verified. Peter Billions was a name whispered in the Yahoo network with awe. Yet, inside, he was rotting. It began with the dreams. Peter would wake up drenched in sweat, hearing voices whispering in tongues only heard in shrines deep in Anambra. Then came the nightmares that followed him into daylight. He'd look into a mirror and see blood on his hands, even after washing. He'd walk past strangers on the road, and their faces would momentarily morph into the girls he'd sacrificed. His mother called from the village. Peter, your father's grave has cracked open. What? He appeared to me in a dream. He said the spirits are angry. Peter hung up. He didn't believe in dreams. Not anymore. He believed in money. Until his 7th girl died. And came back. Her name was Angela. A fair-skinned uni-like student with dimples and a sugar-sweet accent. Peter met her at a lounge in Victoria Island. She wasn't even a hookup, just a girl passing time. He liked her. She reminded him of the life before all this. But the deity wanted another. And Angela had no one who would miss her. So Peter invited her. Fed her wine laced with goat blood. Then laid her on the ritual bed. Only this time, it didn't go as planned. When the deity appeared in the mirror, its smile was gone. You are greedy, it growled. You feed me too often. Your soul is now owed. Peter dropped a calabash. No. I give more. I offer more. The deity laughed. Your offering is unclean. Angela opened her eyes. They were glowing green. Peter screamed. Ran. Locked the door. But when he returned, she was gone. No corpse. No blood. No sign of struggle. Just 3 words, carved into the mirror with blood. I return, Peter. Peter began vomiting worms. Doctors said it was hallucination due to stress, but the nurses refused to touch his tray. He started coughing black mucus. His body itched like something was crawling underneath his skin. He tried to pray, the Bible burned in his hands. He hired a pastor. The pastor fled within 30 minutes, screaming about snakes under the floor. His friends noticed. "Bro, you dey alright?" "I'm fine. Just tired." But even his laughter sounded dead. His mansion grew colder. The walls began to mold. His mirror refused to show his reflection. And one night, he saw Angela, sitting on his bed, smiling. Desperate, Peter returned to Anambra, to Boba Olikan, the spiritualist who gave him the original charm. He arrived in a convoy of 6 SUVs. The villagers stared like he was a god. But Boba Olikan refused to come out. "He has crossed the line," the old man whispered from inside his hut. "He will not be saved." Peter banged the door. "Help me. Name your price." Silence. Then a voice, deep and ancient. "The spirits do not take refund." Peter didn't sleep that night. He couldn't. Even as he lay beneath Egyptian cotton sheets in his massive bedroom, complete with an 85-inch screen, gold-accented headboard, and air conditioning that hummed like lullabies, his spirit was restless. His heartbeat echoed louder than the thunder outside. Each time he closed his eyes, he saw Juliet's face, that bleeding mouth, those blood-filled eyes. He had watched her burial with his own 2 eyes. He had sent his PA to give the family 2 million Nigerian nairas as compensation. He had forgotten her. But the dead hadn't forgotten him. He sat up and lit a cigar, hands trembling. The smoke curled upward and shaped itself, just briefly, into the form of a woman. She turned and smiled at him before dissolving. Peter dropped a cigar. "Okporonu," he whispered into the silence. "I've given you everything." The air grew cold. A sudden wind blew through the closed windows. The curtains danced like spirits rejoicing. Then a voice answered. But it didn't come from outside. It came from inside Peter's chest. "You have 4 more souls to complete the pact." He jumped up, eyes wide. The voice sounded like a chorus of suffering, feminine, cracked, as if 100 dying women spoke in unison. He ran to his shrine again. Candles relit themselves as he stepped in. The skulls trembled. One of the cowries spun on its own. He knelt, hands raised. "Please. I have given you everything. Don't let her haunt me." There was silence. Then a single cowrie flipped, from open side to closed. A sign of rejection. Peter screamed. 2 days later, he tried to return to normal life. He posted pictures on Instagram, posing with his Lamborghini Urus in front of his infinity pool. Caption: "God no go shame us." Girls flooded his DM. Brands begged for collabs. But inside, he was rotting. Each night, he saw them, the girls he sacrificed. Standing in corners. Crawling through mirrors. Whispering while he brushed his teeth. Their voices filled his ears like insects in a corpse. One night, as he walked barefoot into his kitchen at 2 a.m., thirsty from nightmares, he found his mother's face staring at him in the sink water. "Mama." He blinked. "Nothing. Just water." But his phone lit up. A missed call from Mama. She'd been dead for 4 years. The next day, he fled the mansion. The visit to the oracle. Out of desperation, Peter flew to Anambra, to a hidden village near NRI. Word had reached him of a powerful Dibia, seer, named Iznokpuda, a blind man whose third eye could see even through the veil of death. He arrived with his convoy of escalades and 2 armed guards. But the villagers did not bow. Instead, they spat on the ground. The elders refused to greet him. "Another Lagos devil," one muttered. "You bring your curse here." Only the oracle received him. In a room with walls made of red earth and animal bones, Peter knelt before the old man, who wore white chalk and blindfolded eyes. "You seek freedom," Isnokpuda said without being told. "But you are already inside the cage. And the door is closing." Peter dropped a bundle of dollars in front of him. The old man laughed. "Money will not buy you what spirit has claimed." Peter began to cry. The first time in years. "They said I must give someone I love. But I love no one." He nodded slowly. "Then the spirit will take someone who loves you." Peter froze. His younger sister, Uju. She was 19. Still in Unilag. Sweet. Innocent. She always called him Big Bro and prayed for him every birthday. And suddenly, he felt the floor shake. The unraveling. Peter returned to Lagos in a panic. He tried to call Uju. No answer. He called again. Nothing. He screamed at his driver to rush to her hostel. On arrival, they found her unconscious, foaming at the mouth, surrounded by snakes that no one else could see. She survived. Barely. But something had changed. She didn't speak anymore. Just sat in silence. Eyes red. Every prophet Peter contacted told him the same thing. The gods are collecting. The walls of Peter's mansion echoed with silence now. No music. No loud laughter. No celebration. Just whispers and dread. He sat by the pool at 3 a.m., shirtless, his gold chains glinting under the moonlight. But the cold night air did nothing to soothe his mind. He replayed it over and over again, the moment he found Tracy lying there, her lips trembling, her eyes frozen open like she had seen a demon. She never said a word after that. She just watched. Watched Peter like she was waiting. Or like something inside her was. Every healer he flew in from South Africa to Ghana, even that controversial prophet in Benin, said the same thing with eerie calm. The sacrifice was not accepted. The gods are angry. The portal is open. Peter smashed the TV in his room that night. He screamed into the darkness. "I gave you what you asked for." But silence answered him. That week, his Rolls Royce caught fire without warning. The CCTV footage showed no explosion, no spark, just flames, rising like a fiery serpent, swallowing the car whole. Mechanics were stunned. His followers blamed enemies. But Peter knew. He began to see things. Shadows moving in corners. Footsteps behind him when he walked alone. Knocks on his bedroom door at 2:33 a.m., always 3 knocks. Always slow. He opened the door once. No one. But the corridor lights flickered violently, and a voice, soft and cold, whispered. "You broke the covenant." The covenant he forgot. In the early days of his ritual journey, Peter had been warned by the high priest in Anambra. Never sacrifice with emotion. Never return to one you've offered. And never, ever fall in love with the vessel. But Peter, the one they called Billions, had broken all 3. Tracy wasn't just another girl. He had met her at a club in Lekki Phase 1. Her laugh was warm. Her body, fire. Her presence, enchanting. He had intended to use her, as he had others. But something about her drew him in. And for a month, he didn't take her to the shrine. He spoiled her instead: cars, vacations, private chefs. And when he finally offered her soul to Isuzu, the river deity he served, something refused to let go. She didn't die. She transformed. The shrines began to shake. News traveled fast in their secret world. Among the Yahoo Plus community, whispers started to spread. Peter Billions has angered Isuzu. His sacrifices are being rejected. His money will start to burn. One by one, his accounts got flagged mysteriously. His US Bitcoin wallet with over $2.5 million. Gone. Chopped. Blocked. He reached out to Boba Onal, the powerful juju priest from Osun. But Boba didn't answer his calls. When he finally showed up at Boba's compound, he was told he died 2 nights ago. Poisoned. They say his own shrine devoured him. Peter's hands shook as he got back into his G-Wagon. The driver said nothing, just drove. That night, Peter woke up gasping. He had a dream. But it felt real. He was back at the river, the one where he first offered his blood to Isuzu. But now the river ran red. With blood. Tracy stood in it, her white dress drenched, her mouth sewn shut. And behind her rose the shadow of something ancient, half serpent, half woman, with 6 eyes, chanting, "Your death is eternal." The billionaire who couldn't sleep. Peter tried everything. Flew to Dubai. Slept in hotels with armed guards. Booked a private jet to Ghana to see an underground fetish priest in Kumasi. Took holy water. Bathed in goat blood. Wore white from head to toe. But the eyes followed him. Tracy's eyes. Even when he closed his. One day, he returned to his mansion and found his security guard crying at the gate. What happened? Peter demanded. The man trembled. "Yes, sir, your dogs," they turned on each other. All 4 of Peter's security dogs, aggressive Rottweilers, had killed each other in the cage. Blood everywhere. CCTV showed them barking at nothing for 10 minutes, then attacking each other like they were possessed. Peter knew what it meant. His protection was gone. Isuzu had entered his home. The night Lagos went dark. 2 nights later, Lagos Island experienced a blackout. But only one house, Peter's mansion, remained lit. Blindingly lit. Neighbors swore they saw lightning flash above his compound. But there was no rain. Just thunder. And screams. Peter was in his room, alone, standing at the foot of his king-sized bed, trembling, as Tracy sat at the corner of the bed, her hands folded, her mouth moving silently. And then she spoke, for the first time in weeks. "They are here, Peter. The gods are here. They want your soul." Peter stood frozen. The words of the prophet kept replaying in his head like a broken tape. The gods are collecting. His breath was shallow. Sweat poured from his temples despite the air conditioning in his bulletproof Mercedes Maybach. As he looked back at Diana, his last hookup, being wheeled into the ICU with blank, red eyes, he realized something horrifying. This wasn't just about blood anymore. It was about death. That night, Peter didn't sleep. Each time he closed his eyes, he was yanked into a terrifying dream. Not a dream. A visitation. He saw Diana sitting cross-legged in a dark cave, surrounded by faceless women. Their hair floated like they were underwater. They whispered his name over and over. Peter. Peter. Peter Billions. We are many. And we remember. A figure emerged from the shadows, his money deity. But she looked different. Her previously radiant skin was now cracked. Her long, flowing hair now moved like tendrils of smoke, and where her feet once touched the floor, a pit of red-hot embers burned. "You have taken more than you were permitted," she growled, her voice layered with many others. "You gave your body, your loyalty. But now, you must give your soul." Peter woke up screaming. This was no longer about luxury. It was survival. Desperate, Peter called his last hope, an underground spiritualist based in Okija, Anambra. The man was known as Ezemio. Rumor had it he once battled 13 demons inside a royal palace and came out laughing. People said he walked without casting a shadow. Peter paid 10 million Nigerian nairas just for a visit. When Ezemio arrived, he didn't speak. He walked around Peter's mansion barefoot, his white wrapper dragging across the marble floor. He sniffed the air like a wild dog, then finally stopped at the indoor pool, where Peter had drowned a girl 2 months ago during a ritual. "She's still here," Ezemio said flatly. "And she is not alone." "What do I do?" Peter whispered. "You die," the priest replied. "Or you give someone else. Someone greater. Greater. A politician. A pastor. Or," he paused, eyeing Peter's sister's photograph on the wall, "someone you love." Peter chased the priest out of his house. But the seed was already planted. Peter's next few days were filled with paranoia. He removed all the mirrors in his house because they kept showing women's faces instead of his reflection. He installed more CCTV cameras, but they only captured static at night. His Bentley crashed itself into the gate while parked. Even worse, his traditional beads, the red and white coral beads gifted during his first ritual with age, snapped by themselves. At first, 1 bead cracked. Then the next day, 2 more. By Friday, the entire string lay shattered at the foot of his bed. Peter wept. For the first time since he was 19, he wept like a child. Terrified, Peter flew in 3 girls from Kenya, claiming it was just soft enjoyment. But he had plans. He told his loyal boys, 2 hardened cutters from Delta, to prepare a silent kill. They'd take one of the girls to the backyard shrine and slit her throat, just like before. But when they dragged the girl out, tied and gagged, she didn't scream. Instead, she began to laugh. "Peter," she said, spitting out the cloth. "You think you're in control." The girl's eyes turned pitch black. Peter fell backwards. The girl's body convulsed, then disappeared, leaving behind a pile of ash. That night, one of his cult boys went mad. The other, found hanged by his own belt in the guest bathroom. Peter locked himself in his panic room. Weeks passed. Peter stopped going out. Stopped spending. He ignored all the calls from his clients, including a notorious senator from Abuja who once gifted him a Rolls Royce after he delivered a virgin. One evening, while scrolling through his old Telegram threads, he found a voice note from Diana, dated weeks before her collapse. He never noticed it. The voice was scratchy, distorted, like she recorded it in a tunnel. "Peter. I'm sorry. I touched something. I opened your black bag. The one under your bed, with the feathers and cowries. Something followed me home that night. It said, you lied to it. That you're trying to escape your pact. Peter, you need to. The message cut off. Peter dropped his phone. He hadn't told anyone about that bag. Not even his mother. Exactly a month after Diana's breakdown, Peter woke up to flames. His entire underground shrine was on fire. Not from gasoline. Not from a spark. From within. The cowries melted. The black soap boiled. The talking drum screamed with no one hitting it. Age appeared again, this time at the foot of his bed, not in a dream. "You are mine," she whispered, caressing his chest. "No sacrifice will stop what's coming." And then, like mist, she vanished. The fire consumed the lower floor. Peter had insurance. But how do you insure a soul? Peter planned his escape. He booked a private jet to Dubai under a fake name. Packed only his passport, $400,000 in crypto, and a small golden idol he hoped would protect him. At the airport, he wore all black, no jewelry, no attention. But as the pilot was preparing for takeoff, a little girl boarded the plane. She wore a red dress. Her eyes were white. The pilot asked if she was with Peter. She didn't reply. Peter backed away, heart pounding. Suddenly, all the plane's lights flickered. The engines failed. The girl walked past Peter and whispered into his ear. "You were supposed to die at 25. Peter collapsed. They rushed him to a private hospital. He lived. For now. The rain fell like needles from the sky, hissing as it hit the hot earth. Peter stood at the edge of a remote clearing in the forest, miles away from the glittering chaos of Lagos nightlife. A red wrapper clung to his waist. Bare-chested. Feet muddy. Eyes bloodshot. He had arrived. The priest awaited him under the canopy of a shrine carved into the rock, lit by flickering oil lamps. His name was Boba Oluifo, a man said to be older than time, with lips as black as charcoal and skin that shimmered unnaturally in the moonlight. Tonight was not just another sacrifice. It was the Festival of Blood, a sacred ceremony held once every 4 years by high-ranking initiates of the Order of Ogo, the demonic syndicate that governed the deepest layers of Nigeria's spiritual underworld. "I don't just want riches. I want to reign. I want immortality." Ole Boba Oluife. "You've given them flesh. But now, they ask for spirit." Peter hesitated. For the first time in years, a tremor danced through his fingers. Inside a wooden cage beside the shrine was a young girl, no older than 18. Bound. Weeping. A virgin soul, as the priest called her. One whose blood would bind Peter's name eternally to the ledger of the dark gods. Boba Oluifo handed Peter a curved dagger made from bone. The air throbbed. The trees leaned in as if listening. The gods were watching. Peter raised the dagger. And just before the blade met skin, the girl whispered something that froze his soul. "Girl. You'll never make it to 30. Peter staggered back. Boba Oluifo hissed and seized the blade himself, completing the ritual in one stroke. The blood sizzled into the soil. And somewhere deep in the spirit realm, a bell tolled. 2 weeks later, Peter sat in his sprawling mansion in Banana Island, Lagos. Gold sculptures lined his hallway. His Maybach idled outside. Hookup girls swam lazily in his indoor pool. But Peter no longer smiled. Every mirror in the house showed him a different reflection. Sometimes, his face would blink, while he hadn't. Other times, snakes slithered behind his image. Or a red-eyed version of himself mouthed things he couldn't hear. His Magu clients overseas began to complain of disturbing dreams after video calls with him. One French client even said, There was a man with no skin standing behind you, whispering in a language I didn't know. Peter smashed his mirrors. Burned sage. Paid a prophet 3 million Nigerian nairas to fast for 21 days. But the reflections returned. Worse, one of his clients, a widowed American woman who had sent him over $400,000, died suddenly. Her heart exploded while she was on a video call with him. Peter only found out days later. And when he checked her contact on WhatsApp, she was still online. One night, Peter returned from Quillock's nightclub, drunk and half unconscious. The lights in his house flickered. He passed out on the leather couch. At exactly 3 a.m., a cold wind swept through his mansion. The chandelier above him began to spin, though there was no breeze. Then, he saw her. A tall woman in a white wrapper. Head shaved. Face chalk white. Eyes hollow. She walked barefoot across his marble floor, her steps echoing like drums in his head. Peter tried to move. Couldn't. She leaned over him, her breath like decaying leaves. Return what you took. Or join them. She vanished in a flash of blue light. Peter woke up screaming. For weeks after, the scent of burning flesh followed him everywhere. Even his dogs refused to enter the main house. Peter couldn't sleep. Every time he closed his eyes, he was dragged into a dream world where he was buried alive. Screams surrounded him. Hands clawed at his skin. Rats chewed his legs. In reality, his body trembled violently in bed. He tried drinking. Didn't help. He tried imported sleeping pills, his body rejected them. One night, he called Boba Oluifor in desperation. Peter. I'm dying slowly, Boba. I haven't slept in 8 days. Ole Boba Oluifor. Your sacrifices were physical. But your deaths are spiritual. Peter. What does that even mean? Ole Boba Oluifor. It means the gods are eating you in your sleep. Click. In a final attempt to silence the voices, Peter ordered another girl online. Young. Beautiful. Light-skinned. An orphan, perfect for rituals. She arrived at night. The moment she stepped in, every light in the house exploded. And for the first time, the girl spoke without opening her mouth. Girl. You think you own death, but you're only borrowing breath. Peter ran. Screamed. Wept. The girl disappeared before sunrise. But a message had been carved into the wall of his room. For years remain. He was 25. He would die at 29. And the countdown had begun. The air around Peter's mansion had grown thick, humid with an invisible weight. The marbled floors no longer echoed with the carefree clicks of women's heels or the gleeful laughter of his friends. His compound, once a haven for the luxurious and vain, had turned into a haunted palace. Even his dogs refused to bark. They just sat, whining into the wind. Inside his underground ritual chamber, Peter stood alone. Gone were the white-robed Babalawo's who once praised his offering bowls. Now, they were silent, or dead. One of them had collapsed mid-ritual weeks ago, blood gushing from his eyes. Peter lit the last of the 7 blood-soaked candles around the idol, the hideous brass statue with a mouth full of human teeth. A tongue, long, black, and leathery, slithered out of it, licking the rim of the calabash Peter had just filled with goat's blood. I've done everything you asked, Peter muttered, voice trembling. The statue groaned, and from its base, hundreds of tiny eyes opened, rolling and blinking in random directions. Peter fell to his knees. Please. I just want peace. I just want to be normal again. A whisper echoed in the room, deep, slurred, layered like the voice of 1,000 beings speaking in unison. Give us 100. Then we'll let you rest. Peter couldn't believe what he heard. 100 what? Then it became clear. He was being asked to offer 100 souls. He stared at the shrine in disbelief. His hands shook. I'm not a monster, he whispered to himself. But the next day, his bank account lost 300 million Nigerian nairas. Then, 2 of his Bentleys caught fire on the third mainland bridge, inexplicably. Then his latest real estate investment in Banana Island got flooded, with blood, or something that looked like it. And finally, the snakes returned. This time, they were in his dreams. They didn't bite him. They just watched. He had to choose. And he did. Peter returned to his old hunting ground, Instagram, Twitter DMs, lounges in Lekki, and even private beaches in Onairo. He wasn't careful anymore. He was desperate. The girls came. He fed them wine. He made love to them. And afterward, he would disappear into his underground chamber. No screams were heard. No blood left the mansion. But the shrine was fed. He marked the number on the wall with red chalk, 1. Then 2. Then 3. Until he got to 46. But with each sacrifice, something happened to Peter. His face aged, but not like a normal man. His eyes darkened. His teeth started chipping for no reason. His reflection in the mirror began to warp, sometimes smiling back at him when he wasn't. Then came the dreams. One girl, Tonya, the 47th sacrifice, refused to die. Even after the ritual. She just stood there in the chamber, laughing. Do you think the devil doesn't demand interest? She whispered. Peter ran. But he couldn't leave the room. When he finally woke up in his bedroom, her earrings were on his bedside table. He hadn't brought her upstairs. Had he? It was supposed to be a landmark. 50. Halfway to freedom. Her name was Adis. Young. Innocent. Not a Rams girl. Just a girl who needed a ride home during the rain. He picked her up on Admiralty Way. She refused his drink. She asked about the leather bag in his car. She looked at him with eyes full of questions. Peter hesitated. For the first time, he talked. I wasn't always like this. She just nodded. Then, before he could take her to the mansion, she said softly, turn back. Peter did. He dropped her at her hostel. That night, he couldn't sleep. The statue screamed in his dreams. The 100 eyes turned black. You owe us 1. And 1 more for your disobedience. The count on the wall now read, 48. Not 49. Not 50. But 48. They had punished him. Peter's mother arrived from the village unexpectedly. She looked thinner. Hollow-eyed. She said the spirits had been visiting her in dreams. They said you've opened a gate you can't close. Peter tried to laugh it off. But when she sprinkled water across the compound, the droplets turned to ash before hitting the ground. That night, she tried to burn the shrine. She didn't survive. Peter found her body with her tongue missing and her chest burned with a strange sigil. He buried her at midnight, alone, behind the mansion. The next morning, the shrine had grown larger. New carvings, A child's face in the idol now stared back at him. Peter began hallucinating. In the mirror. In the pool. In the car windows. Everywhere. The 100 eyes. Blazing. Watching. His cleaner saw one and ran. Never came back. His driver quit. His gatekeeper died in his sleep. Peter was alone. And the house started whispering. Sometimes in Hausa. Sometimes in Latin. Sometimes in his mother's voice. He couldn't eat. Couldn't sleep. Just fed the shrine and counted the days. Counted the names. 48. 48. 48. No matter what he did, the number stayed the same. Then, on his 29th birthday, he woke up in a coffin. In his room. With the shrine breathing. It began with a call in the dead of night. Peter's phone buzzed violently at 3:17 a.m., a number with no digits, just a glowing white screen. No caller ID. No sound. Only a vibration that thudded like a heartbeat. He picked it up slowly, eyes half closed. The voice on the other end was not human. It was layered, like whispers speaking over themselves. A cold wind seemed to blow through the phone into the room. It is time. Bring what you owe. Peter dropped the phone. No one else in the mansion had heard it. Not even Felix, who was sleeping just across the hallway. But when Peter looked at his mirror, he saw the word OWE etched across his forehead in blood-red strokes, and a trail of ants crawling out from his ears. He screamed. But his voice didn't echo. Only silence responded. The annual Oru-Udu festival was happening in his mother's village. Peter never attended it before. He always found it primitive. But this time, he felt drawn to it. Like a magnet pulling him to something ancient and unavoidable. He arrived dressed in full Igbo regalia, red cap, lion head embroidery on his tunic, and beads that glowed faintly in the moonlight. The masquerades were already dancing, towering wooden masks, carved with expressions of rage and sorrow. One looked exactly like the girl who'd gone mad. Another resembled his father. The drumming grew wild. An old woman approached him with white chalk and marked his chest with a symbol he didn't understand. "You are not just here to watch," she said. "You are the offering." The ground cracked beneath him. And suddenly, Peter fell. Down, into the earth. Into a chamber of fireflies, skulls, and drums that played themselves. The voice returned. "Peter Billions, or Peter Billions old." Then, a blinding flash. And he was back. Standing in the village square. But no one saw him anymore. He screamed at the drummers. He yelled at the dancers. He cried out to his mother. And the river replied. A surge of violent waves. Then calm. And from the mist, a shape emerged, tall, beautiful, wearing a red wrapper, eyes glowing with fire. It was her. The very first girl. But she was no longer human. She smiled. And her mouth stretched unnaturally wide, filled with blackened teeth. "You think blood can pay for a stolen destiny?" she asked. Then she touched his forehead. Peter fell backward, eyes wide open, breath frozen. He woke up 3 days later. In his mansion. Alone. His staff were gone. His cars were missing. The gates rusted. The once vibrant walls were now cracked and crawling with vines. But he was still alive. For now. His phone rang. It was that same glowing screen. This time, the voice said, "You've been marked for collection. Your death will be a slow hunger." Peter couldn't scream anymore. He simply sat on his marble floor. And for the first time in his life, he prayed. But no one answered. Not even the gods he once served. By the time Peter turned 29, no one called him Peter Billions anymore. He looked nothing like the boy on the flyers, the handsome charmer with the wine-red Mercedes, diamond earrings, and full chest. Now, his beard was patchy. His eyes were sunken. His skin, pale and peeling like old paint. Even his mansion in Lekki Phase 1 looked like a haunted church. The compound was overgrown. The pool filled with frogs. Street boys had started calling it House of His because they swore they heard snakes whispering inside. But that evening, as the sun bled behind clouds over Lagos Island, Peter felt something different. A calm. Like a silence before rain. He wore white. A wrapper tied around his waist. No shirt. No shoes. And for the first time in 4 years, he walked barefoot into the heart of the city. Through traffic. Through shouting conductors. Through screaming hawkers. No one noticed him. He was a ghost among the living. He kept walking, until he reached a place he hadn't seen since his teenage days. Mushin. The street was still there. Number 17, Agbobai Street. The compound where his mother once sold pepper and he hawked sachet water with no slippers on his feet. That was the last place he was human. Peter stood in front of the rusted gate and smiled faintly. 2 young boys sat by the roadside, laughing over a broken phone. One of them looked exactly like Peter at 15, skinny, sharp face, pure mischief. He wanted to warn them. But his mouth could no longer form warnings. Only whispers. So he turned and walked again. This time, toward the final place the gods had marked for him. At exactly 12:01 a.m., Peter arrived back at his mansion. But it wasn't just a mansion anymore. The lights had turned red. The doors opened themselves. And candles lined every hallway, tall, white, unmoving, like sentinels of judgment. He followed the trail. It led to his private room, the chamber where he once performed rituals with his deity. But tonight, there were no altars. No money on the ground. No red cloth or palm oil. Only a single wooden chair in the center of the room. And a mirror facing it. Peter sat. His body shaking uncontrollably. Then the candle flames began to flicker, one by one, until total darkness. He was alone. But not for long. It started with a low hum, like a generator groaning in the distance. Then, a deep voice spoke from the walls. "Do you remember what you asked for?" Peter couldn't respond. His mouth was locked. But the mirror showed his younger self, 19, bare-chested, holding a red chicken, begging. "Give me wealth. Girls. Cars. Everything. I'll give you anything. Anything." Then, the mirror cracked. And the voice replied again. "You did not give us anything. You gave us everything." Suddenly, the floor of the room became liquid. Black. Thick. Like burnt oil. And from it, spirits began to rise. Each one with a face of a girl he had used, sacrificed, or promised love to before handing her over. They circled him. Sang in whispers. Some held candles. Others held bones. One reached forward, a tall spirit with empty eyes, and touched Peter's chest. His heart stopped. Then started again. But slower. And slower. Peter dropped to the floor. Convulsing. Blood dripping from his ears. His phone, dusty and dead for months, lit up on the floor beside him. A message appeared. Your soul has been overdrafted. Another one followed. Would you like to pay in pain or in eternity? He reached for the phone. Clicked eternity. The room went quiet. Then, the wall behind the mirror opened. Inside was a glowing pit filled with the things Peter loved most. Stacks of $100 bills. His cars. Watches. Necklaces. iPhones. Gold statues. It was a graveyard of his own greed. But behind it was a dark figure. Tall. Wearing a border made of smoke. No face. Just a crown of thorns. The deity. Collect your throne, it said. Sit with us. Peter walked in. The door shut behind him. And the mansion exploded into silence. The next morning, Lagos woke up to shocking news. The mansion of Peter Billions had burned to ash. No fire truck arrived. No neighbors helped. The building simply collapsed inward, like a dying animal. No one could find his body. But some say they saw his shadow walking away from the wreckage. Smiling. Others say they hear drumming from the ruins at night. But the most terrifying rumor. That every new Yahoo boy in Lagos now dreams of Peter. He stands at the foot of their bed. Holding an iPhone dripping blood. Saying only one thing. Don't be like me, or be better than me at it. Peter Billions became a myth. Some say he was last seen in Benin City, whispering to a boy in an ATM queue. Others claim he's now one of the deities, collecting sacrifices through dreams, dating apps, and seduction. But the mansion is still there. Charred. Empty. And when it rains at midnight, they say you can hear a voice crying from the walls. I heard it all. And I lost my soul.